On Thursday, the 24th of July, 2025, the news broke that one of the most iconic, well-known, controversial, and polarizing professional wrestlers of all time, WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan, had passed away at the age of 71 years old. Hogan, the biggest box office draw in the history of the industry, had been rumored to be in ill health for the last several weeks. Inside the squared circle, Hogan wasn't necessarily known for his stellar technical matches, but rather his mastery of working the crowd, manipulating the audience and bringing them to a fever pitch. In this countdown video, we're going to reveal the 6 highest rated Hulk Hogan WWE matches of all time, according to the website Cage Match. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. And in this countdown video, we're going to talk about the 6 highest rated matches in the famous Hall of Famer career of Hulk Hogan in WWE and WCW, according to the website Cage Match. Now is always the case when it comes to these kind of videos, or when it comes to arbitrary ratings or rankings of matches, whether it be ratings out of 10 or star ratings. Some people will obviously agree, some people will disagree. One person's match of the year candidate can be another person's worst match ever candidate, so it's all completely subjective. But as always, let me know your thoughts, your reactions, your comments on the list, which matches should have been included, shouldn't have been included, and which matches you think are underrated or maybe overrated when it comes to the legendary career of WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan. Now, a little bit of an explainer when it comes to this one as well. We're only including matches from Hulk Hogan's WWE and WCW runs. In addition to that, we're only including matches that are either singles matches, tag team matches, not battle royals or anything like that. But we are including matches that are, multi-man matches, cage matches, no disqualification matches, etc. It's only really the battle royals we're kind of leaving out, i.e. he's participated in many Royal Rumbles. We're not including Royal Rumble matches. Right, let's get straight in to the 6th highest rated match in Hulk Hogan's WWE and WCW career, that being against the former WWE chairman Vince McMahon. This, of course, was at WrestleMania 19 back on March 30th of 2003. It was a match that was 20 years in the making. Of course, the history was there between Hogan and McMahon. Hogan and McMahon, the team of Hogan and McMahon, is really the reason why we know WWE as it is today. Of course, it was Vince McMahon's vision of competing at a regional level, competing with all of the territories across the United States, going national, using cable television, using closed-circuit television, using pay-per-view, using money and investment, and competing with all the territories, with Hulk Hogan as his biggest star, Hulkamania running wild across not only the United States, but the whole world, making WWE the global leader in professional wrestling. Now, of course, Hogan and McMahon had their ups and downs, whether it be over money, whether it be over creative, whether it be over controversy, or whether it be the steroid scandal of the 1990s, which saw Vince McMahon indicted by the US federal government, and Hulk Hogan be the prosecution's star witness. Hogan ultimately decided to side with McMahon, and McMahon was acquitted of all charges. But then, at that period of time, Hogan had left WWE, and he was working with Vince McMahon's rival, Ted Turner, in WCW. He tried to put McMahon out of business. Hogan eventually left WCW and returned to WWE, and it led to this match between Hogan and McMahon. Now, when it comes to the rating for the match, it's got a rating of a 7.40 out of 10, and is a match that many actually say is one of Hogan's best WrestleMania matches ever. And it far exceeded expectations. This is a time where Hulk Hogan is in his 50s. Vince McMahon is in his 50s. Vince McMahon's not even a wrestler. Hogan, at this point, is a part-time wrestler with knee replacement, hip replacement, pretty much everything you can think being replaced at that point. So how on earth did they steal the show when it comes to WrestleMania 19? Many people think they did when it comes to a match that was filled with fantastic matchups, whether it be Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle or Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho. And this is one of those ones where you have to separate the art from the artist. Despite a lot of people the respect for both of these guys over the years being dropped on a personal level, the match, which is now over 22 years old, it was done in 2003, holds up as an improbably great spectacle. It is bloody, it is violent, it has got blood from Hogan, blood from McMahon. The crowd are red hot, and in actual Seattle venue, it wasn't the best crowd for acoustics. It was very difficult to kind of hear what crowds were and weren't enjoying, but you absolutely knew they were enjoying this one. It features Vince McMahon doing a genuinely insane leg drop off a ladder through an announce table. That alone is pretty surreal. He's doing the Hulk Hogan pose at the top of the ladder. There's a really unique spot where Hugo Savinovich, next to Carlos Cabrera, but Hugo Savinovich, the Spanish commentator, gets hit with a steel chair. He gets color and juice in the match as well. It features some incredible camera shots, including one of Vince McMahon, blood covering his face, the proverbial crimson mask rising up, and you just see his face over the apron peering into the ring, looking the embodiment of evil. It also features the return of Rowdy Roddy Piper to WWE, someone who's got lengthy history with not only Hulk Hogan in the first main event of WrestleMania, teaming with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff against Hogan and Mr. T, but also great history with Vince McMahon as well, his top heel in the 1980s opposite Hulk Hogan. Ultimately, Piper decides to side with McMahon, hitting Hogan with a lead pipe. It's just a match that many people thought was just an attraction match, one of those attraction matches you get at WrestleMania, not really going to be blown away by any of the actual work in the match, and many people thought it was going to stink up the card, and it was going to be the worst WrestleMania match of the night, maybe of all time, but no. Unironically, it's some people's favorite WrestleMania match of Hulk Hogan. It's two guys beating the absolute living holy hell out of each other, and it's actually just this incredible spectacle at Safeco Field, and is way better than anyone thought it was going to be. So if you haven't watched it, I would certainly recommend. It's a match that, as I mentioned, is over 20 years old, but absolutely holds up with a 7.40 rating out of 10. We then move to Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage. Now, if I said to you Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage is going to be on this list, you would say, well, I'm not surprised. You know, two of the most iconic rivals in WWE history, one of the most famous WrestleMania main events ever of Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage, the Mega Powers exploding, Miss Elizabeth, of course, being involved in all of that, the Mega Powers tag team, of course, someone that they were linked together in WWE, linked together in WCW. It's not that surprising. Well, you would be surprised when I say it's not the WrestleMania main event. According to Cage Match, the highest rated match between Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage is actually their first ever meeting inside of a WWF ring. This match took place on an episode of WWF on Prism Network. It aired on the 28th of September. It was live on the 28th of September 1985 on the Prism Network. It was at the Philadelphia Spectrum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. As I mentioned, it's the first ever meeting in WWF at the time, between Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. It's the main event of the show for the WWF World Heavyweight title. Hulk Hogan defeats Randy Savage with Miss Elizabeth in his corner at just over 11 minutes. Now, you can actually find this match on YouTube, the first ever meeting, an historic first ever meeting between Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. It's on YouTube. As I mentioned, the match goes just over 11 minutes, including entrances. It's about just over 19 minutes, so it's a 20-minute match, and I would go out of your way to watch it. It is old school professional wrestling, and it's not what you really think. It's just a great bit of business. Maybe could some say maybe has a bit of a too high a rating, or maybe it should have a bit more. The finish involves Randy Savage going for his trademark elbow. He misses. Hogan gets the pinfall. Savage just kicks out. There's a little bit of confusion over the pinfalls, but they're setting up matches later on down the line. And it's a good opening match in the two's rivalry. Of course, bigger matches were to come that would draw much more money and much more eyeballs when it comes to WrestleMania matches or matches in WWF or WCW for that matter. But there is this sort of air of specialness about this one because of what's to come, and it's a great bit of business. It's an awesome match for the first encounter. Some say it's better than the matches that they had in Boston the year later in 1986. The crowd in Philadelphia is absolutely spectacular. It's really peak Hulkamania as well. None of this in a couple of years' time when Hulkamania is dying down and people are starting to turn. People like Savage. This is Randy Savage as the top heel. Peak Hulkamania. It's got Hulk Hogan in white tights, not red and yellow at this point. Hulk Hogan's got great crowd control. The work's good. It's really good, just old school pro wrestling. You've got stalling from Randy Savage to try and get Hogan to come out and fight on the outside. Hogan does it back to Savage to make him angry. It's great psychology with a white hot crowd, and it's a great first time meeting between the two. It's not great because of technical work, typical of Hulk Hogan matches, but it's just great to watch with pro wrestling psychology, no doubt about that. So, okay, that one had a 7.56 rating out of 10. We then move on to our first WCW match on this list, and it is War Games. It is Team NWO versus Team WCW at War Games. Of course, it was part of the Full Brawl 1996 pay-per-view from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It was the main event where the NWO, that being Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and NWO Sting, we'll talk about that in a minute, with Ted DiBiase in their corner, defeating Team WCW, which consisted of Arn Anderson, Lex Luga, Ric Flair, and the real Sting, with Miss Elizabeth and Woman in their corner. Now, this is a match where actually it's not so much about the in-ring action. Of course, it's loaded with talent when it comes to Anderson, Luger, Flair, Sting, obviously the NWO in its original form of Hogan, Nash, and Hall. This is really just a couple of months removed as well, just about 3 months removed from the whole angle to create the NWO. So the NWO is white hot at this period of time. It's still very, very fresh. We're still kind of basking in the newly healed Hulk Hogan and still trying to get used to all of that, and how amazing it is that this iconic babyface has turned into this now iconic heel, but we're still kind of adjusting to that at this period of time. And it's really the angle that makes this match that actually people talk about the most, because the barbaric nature of the original War Games matches at this point was quite toned down, but it really is one of the best when it comes to storytelling, not only with the NWO coming out as winners, but also how WCW are the architects of their own downfall, how they've allowed for the NWO to actually infest WCW in the first place, because it's still surreal at this point watching Hogan get this overwhelmingly negative reaction. All the drama with the two Stings that came out as the last two in the match, as it becomes obvious when the NWO imposter Sting comes out and the fans all over the arena are chanting, "We want Sting." The real Sting comes out, he annihilates every NWO member, and then is so incensed by the rest of his team, he just walks out on them after proving his innocence in the Nitro fiasco. It's a brilliant character moment where he feels completely vindicated, but also plants a seed for this idea of Sting can't trust anyone, he's got to be by himself, and that's going to lead to eventually, of course, Crow Sting and Sting at Starrcade in 1997 defeating Hulk Hogan. But it was, again, a very smartly booked match. The finish might have been the sort of weakness of it. Other than that, it's absolutely a great watch. The post-match where they attack Savage and Elizabeth lays on top of him to try and stop them, and they spray paint her dress, is also a very strong visual moment as well. The pacing is really, really good, and it did everything, including the convincing performance as the NWO Sting. It's one of those matches where they get all of the storytelling right, and it is one of the best pro wrestling War Games matches that you would expect. And at that time, in 96, you're still on the heels of some pretty poor WCW main events in 94 and 95, but this was one of the best overall WCW pay-per-views as well, with a strong Benoit Jericho match, Rey Mysterio. It's overall fantastic stuff, but it's an angle disguised as a match, and it is well worth a watch. And again, it's right at the early stages of the NWO, so definitely worth watching that one. Now, speaking of the NWO, we go from, obviously, this match was a 7.66 out of 10 to the match that created the NWO in the first place. Now, this is certainly one of those matches whereby what actually happens in terms of the technical of the match doesn't matter at all. It is Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, the outsiders, versus Lex Luger, Randy Savage, and Sting. Of course, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall had the mystery partner. Who is going to be the third man? It took place at Bash at the Beach in 1996, specifically on the 7th of July, 1996. And it's the night that everything changed when it comes to the formation of the NWO. It goes without saying that this is one of the biggest turning points of US wrestling history, particularly, of course, in the 1990s, but also just in general, which alone is enough to make it worth a watch. It's not even, if you're going to watch it for the match is great. But even without that context, it's a pretty good match. It's heavily built around both the anticipation of who's going to be the third member, and obviously always the difficulty of when you hype something up so much, can you even actually deliver? Do you have plans to deliver? Oh my goodness me, does it deliver? But the psychology of it's great, with the outsiders cutting off the perennial babyface of Sting and Randy Savage. Luger ends up getting a stretcher job out of the ring only in a couple of minutes. With the ending of the match, they managed to easily just recontextualize the last 2 years of Hulkamania running wild in WCW as not an out-of-touch babyface from a bygone era, but instead a long con perpetrated by this egomaniac. He's attached himself to his fellow invaders from up north. At this point, he's the ultimate guy from the WWF who's come over to try and destroy WCW, and say what you will about how the NWO storyline ended and the politics of the NWO, what have you. But it's a moment, and it's a moment that, again, the match itself is a fine match, but it's the moment. It's one of the most iconic matches in pro wrestling history. It's the end of Hulkamania, the beginning of the New World Order, the post-match interview, the trash being thrown into the ring. It's pro wrestling at its finest. It is iconic, and it has a rating of a 7.81 out of 10. We then go to Hulk Hogan versus Bob Backland. Probably didn't actually expect to be on this list at all. Now, two iconic WWE champions, two of the most longest reigning WWE champions in company history. Bob Backland and Hulk Hogan only faced off in singles action twice in their careers. Once, another one was in tag team action that took place in New Japan Pro Wrestling. The first match took place on the 12th of April in 1980. This is when Backland is the champion. And then actually they had a rematch the following month, which was even better than the first match that they had. It's better than their previous one. It's a lot of callbacks to the first one as well. It's a time which, you're still coming out of the Bruno Sammartino, Larry Zbyszko era, so it's not Hulk Hogan being Hulk Hogan at this point. It's still Bob Backland being the WWF champion. The match is smartly worked, and it's a rematch from their April encounter where Hogan won by countout after Backland got dazed doing his airplane spin. They begin more of the same as their first match. Hogan uses the size advantage to gain the upper hand while Backland sneaks in a couple of hope spots in. Hogan goes after Backland's arm. That was merely filler and was dropped afterwards. Bob in return is retaliated by going after Hogan's leg. Backland was really lively during his leg work segment. He injected tons of energy into it, wrenching on the leg furiously. Hogan sold it pretty consistently as well, but the finish here is what is really fantastic. Backland learned from his previous mistake. This time he changes his strategy, blasting Hogan with a series of drop kicks and sends him to the outside for a count-out victory instead of trying to power him. There are a few empty spots in there, but again, it's one of those matches where it's probably not going to get talked about much. It's for the WWF Heavyweight Championship. It's Bob Backland versus Hulk Hogan for the title. Of course, I mentioned Backland gets the victory, and it was going to be the precursor to Hogan winning the championship in a few years' time. Of course, Backland drops the championship to the Iron Sheik thanks to Stan Stasiak and all that kind of stuff going on with Bob Backland and losing the championship, of course, as I mentioned, to the Iron Sheik, and then the Iron Sheik dropping the championship eventually to Hulk Hogan. But this is a period of time where Hogan's still the babyface, not the babyface yet. He's still the heel, and Arnold Skaaland eventually, of course, again threw in the towel for Backland. But not long after that, we of course see Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania being born. So it's an interesting, I guess, precursor of what's to come in a match that isn't really spoken about all that much, and you won't expect to be talked about all that much. And finally, the highest rated match in Hulk Hogan's WWE or WCW career is Hulk Hogan versus The Rock at an 8.57 rating out of 10 from WrestleMania 18. It is one of the rare occasions in which a dream match delivers, and this is one of the most, I would say, polarizing matches of all time, in the sense that it's a match that Dave Meltzer only gave 3 stars, whilst others say it's arguably the greatest pro wrestling match of all time. Cody Rhodes, for instance, says it's the greatest pro wrestling match of all time. Some say it's one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. It took place on the 17th of March 2002. Hogan had just come back to WWF the month prior as Hollywood Hulk Hogan as the heel, still the leader of the NWO, with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, and it's just one of the best dream matches. When Hogan came back to the WWF, people said we want to see Hogan versus The Rock, Hogan versus Steve Austin. We never saw Hogan versus Steve Austin, but we did see Hogan versus The Rock, and it's one of the best dream matches ever. It's great chemistry between the two, but really what sets this match apart from any other match, really in WrestleMania history, it's the crowd. It's the crowd. It's the ability to improvise. It's the crowd in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, that despite Hogan being the heel that night, they wanted Hulk Hogan. They wanted the old school Hulk Hogan. They wanted Hogan from the 1980s. They wanted the red and yellow. They wanted Hogan to be the babyface, and they wanted into The Rock at this point. So they decided to switch up. Hogan ran back the hits. He did the hulking up. He did the finger point. He did the leg drop, the improvised. Rock became the heel. Hogan became a babyface. The crowd was so on Hogan's side. When he hulks up, the crowd go insane. When they just first face off, And then looking at the crowd, it's crazy. It's a match that is just, you have to watch it. It's just incredible work of a crowd. And maybe, again, the technical aspect of this one isn't fantastic, but when they're tying up, the crowd are going insane. Jim Ross on commentary as well. When he's hulking up and he hits the leg drop, Jim Ross is screaming he beat Andre the Giant with that move because, of course, you've got nearly like 2 decades of equity of Hogan at WrestleMania, and he hadn't appeared for years at that point. Ever since early 90s at WrestleMania. And this is now into the 2000s. And it really is a clash of generations. 2 different eras facing off against each other. The Golden Generation versus one of the biggest stars of the Attitude Era. And Rock winning is the right call. Hogan puts him over, clean as a whistle in the ring. And it's just a classic. It's an absolute classic. How it didn't main event, I guess because they wanted to have the title match going last. Nothing could finish it. The false finishes in this match were fantastic. The crowd makes it. And that's what's special about pro wrestling. It's one of those matches, if you watch it with the sound off, it's okay. But if you watch it with the sound on, it's just incredible. The Skydown crowd is electric. It's professional wrestling at its finest, by 2 of the greatest wrestlers or sports entertainers of all time. It is just absolutely incredible. So there you go, guys. There are the 6 highest rated matches in Hulk Hogan's WWE and WCW career. What do you make of these matches? Are some matches overhyped? Are you shocked that some matches miss out on this list? According to Cage Match, let me know your thoughts as always in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.